Need for you to listen to this very, very carefully, because this is on a grand scale here, not only in America, but also over towards Germany. This is in a grand scale of being apocalyptic. Like I said, it's happening not just in one particular area, but on the whole planet, of different catastrophic events that are happening, unlike anything that scientists has ever seen before. They are absolutely memorized. They are jaw-dropping moments to where whenever they see what they're seeing right in front of their very eyes, it's impossible to deny, but at the same time, it's so overwhelming, it's almost hard to believe. So if you don't mind, please pay very close attention to what you're fixing to watch here on CNN pertaining to the catastrophics. Apocalyptic.
To understand Italy, you need to look at the food.
Let's move this forward a little bit. Sorry about that. I thought I had it set at the right place. Just like the Bible teaches, it says that we will see signs in the heavens and signs upon the earth such as man has never seen before. That's what we're seeing right now pertaining to the Hubble spacecraft and other space views. These are all conjuncted in areas that we have become callous to in thinking that it's normal, but in reality it's very, very abnormal to have stuff like that floating around in outer space towards being able to see space. Once more, whenever you're dealing with the frog and the boiling water theory towards turning the water up very gradually, you run into this type of scenario with society towards them thinking that the abnormal is normal. That's where we're at right now on the planet, thinking that the abnormal is normal. Like I said, I apologize for this because I thought that I had this set right. It's fixed to come into it now. Here we go.
How bad has this fire season been so far? Just consider this. Smoke from wildfires, it is blanketing the country. From California here to New York, 68 major fires are currently burning, consuming more than 1 million acres and almost anything in its path. Red flag warnings for high fire danger, they are up in 5 states in the Pacific Northwest. In Oregon, the Boot Lake fire has already burned more than 227,000 acres, and it's also largely uncontained.
A national shortage of aviation fuel threatening to hinder the firefighting effort in Oregon. Delivery to the Lake County airport was delayed, keeping helicopters and planes that dropped fire retardants on the ground for days. Worsening drought, historic heat wave, the western U.S. is baking. Now, as temperatures cool, gusty winds are fanning the flames, making it more difficult for fire crews. We told you yesterday about a small California town trying to recover from the devastating Camp Fire. People there now are forced to rebuild again. CNN's Sarah Seidner reports from Doyle, California.
The entire town was evacuated.
This is the second time in just 8 months Kathy Catron's hometown has lost more than a dozen homes to wildfire.
It sounded like a freight train coming down the mountain. The flames are coming at you, the smoke rolls over you, it's all of a sudden it's dark. All you see is this big, huge orange wall of flames all down the hole, everywhere in front of you, everywhere you look.
Catron is the volunteer fire chief of this town of about 600 residents. She is often the first one to call residents to tell them their home is gone.
I'm still kind of numb. I mean, after losing everything that I worked for and everything all these years, it's gone. And everybody says, oh, it's so replaceable and stuff like, well, no, a lot of it isn't.
Saturday, Kelly Grosso lost one of the 16 homes burned in Doyle. Everyone thought the danger was over. But on Monday, the fire came roaring back, devouring more homes. Chief Catron and several residents were angry that airdrops from state and federal agencies didn't come earlier.
We were like the Lone Ranger that, because a lot of the engines weren't where they should have been and weren't down there, maybe. And I was, at that point, I was ready to just say, I can't do this anymore.
Apocalyptic fire scenes are appearing more and more across the West. So far this year, 67 large fires across 12 states have burned an area nearly 5 times the size of New York City.
The frequency of fires has skyrocketed.
Cal Fire Captain Dennis Smith has spent 25 years battling some of the biggest blazes in the state of California.
We used to get some what you would call career fires maybe once every few years, and we're seeing career fires, 100,000 plus acres is a common occurrence every year now.
It's the new normal.
The resources are spread through the state as we're burning from the Oregon border down to Mexico.
California is on track to have an even more devastating fire season than 2020, which was the worst on record, with 4.1 million acres charred.
Being from California, I'm sure you hear that this fire season is going to be the worst fire season, right? Every year we hear that.
Which means their grueling work must go on for longer, in days of 100+ temperatures in some places. And once the big flames are smothered, days of intricate work begin on hidden hotspots. There is one goal in mind: save lives and then property. Are you proud? You look around this entire house and it's charred 360 around this house. But the house, perfect.
Yeah, the house is still standing.
But 250 miles away in Doyle, the local fire volunteers are devastated, and residents are worried they're at the beginning of what used to be the start of fire season. Sarah Seidner, CNN, Doyle, California.
It's just fire season gets worse every year. It lasts longer every year. My cousin who lives in San Diego said it's like almost half the year is now fire season. It's just
Constant threat.
Did you hear what they said? This is just the beginning of their fire season. Wow.
Right, misinformation online, a breeding ground for mistrust. Now, preventable COVID heartbreak on the rise, and new breakthrough cases are slowing a return to normal. What it all means next.
I was listening a while ago. I'm not going to show it to you. I'm only going
And we're
to.
seeing career fires maybe once every few years, and we're seeing career fires, 100,000 plus acres is a common occurrence every year now.
Twelve states have burned an area.
It's really sad, not just pertaining to what we're seeing, devastation with property value, but the coronavirus over in Tokyo, where they're fixing to have the Olympics in less than a week from now, are intensifying. They were showing this one guy who had bought $40,000 worth of tickets, worth of seats. He was from Tokyo or Japan or somewhere over there. He was Asian. And he was talking about how heartbroken that he was because all the tickets that he had bought, I guess, are unredeemable. And he's not only going to miss out on not getting the money retracted, but he's not going to be able to see none of the events. And it's really, really sad whenever somebody has put forth that type of effort towards wanting to personally be there and watch the Olympics, various things going on. Like I said, this individual spent $40,000 just for the Olympic Games. And now they're calling it off towards absolutely no public is going to be involved. Well, whenever you have the coronavirus raging and the numbers are constantly going up every day, it's a pretty well given that they're going to have to either do that or they're going to have to shut down the whole proceedings towards the Olympics totally. And one would be just as sorrowful as the other, just a little less sorrowful if they didn't have the Olympics at all. So whenever you walk this tight line in knowing how many, how much, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. It's sometimes a very difficult decision whenever it comes to these type of venues, because so much is hanging on the line pertaining to doing what they do that's already pre-scheduled, sometimes out as far as 7, 8, 9, 10 years in advance. So much is hanging on the line. The professionals really just don't know what to do. They really just don't know what to do in dealing with a situation like this. Like this individual right here just got through saying that now these career fires that they're seeing now every year, expanding, growing, intensifying, consuming not only more acreage pertaining to the forestry, but also consuming towns, cities, communities out in the wayside. They're now seeing this repeatedly on a year-to-year, every year scale. It's kind of like the massive hurricanes. You know, it used to be that we didn't see a Hurricane Katrina, a Category 4 or Category 5 hurricane, every 500 years. Then it went from every 500 years to about every 100 years. Then it went from every 100 years to every 20 years. Then it went from every 20 years to every 5 years. Well, now we're seeing Category 4 and 5 hurricanes and typhoons on the other side of the equator every year that are only intensifying and getting worse. So there should be bells going off in people's heads towards thinking, my God, there really is something to the planet. It is reeking right now. Sure, it's reeking. It talks about the great sorrows in the Bible of how much that these occurrences are going to take place that will be absolutely devastating to the inhabitants here upon to the earth. Devastating. So sad whenever you get to looking at how much damage that these things are doing. You take a lot of those men right there. Some of them are 30, some of them are 40. But then again, you got some of them in their 50s, some of them in their 60s. And whenever you're trying to battle something like that, you're having to put on all kinds of extra equipment. It's excessively hot. You're having to breathe smoke if you don't have the proper oxygen equipment on you. And a lot of these older gentlemen, it actually drives them off into a state of coronary arrest, towards basically either having heat strokes or heart attacks. I mean, it's devastating whenever you see this occurring this early in the year. And you have to put aside people like Donald Trump. You have to dumb them down in saying what you're saying about environmental global warming is incorrect, because we can see it in front of our very eyes towards what's happening. Even though you got your climate deniers like Donald Trump that's out there by the scores, you know, deep down in your heart, deep down in your mind, you know that what they're saying is inaccurate. It's untrue. Especially whenever you have this much evidence that's being compiled on a day-to-day, year-to-year level. It talks about that in the Bible. It says, woe, woe, woe be unto the inhabitants here upon to the planet, whenever the prophecies of the seals leading into the prophecy of the vows and the rest of the things that's going to happen in the book of Revelations. It talks about these things towards trying to pre-warn us of these events that's going to happen. Once more, you have to not only be a believer, but you have to be conformed in the Holy Spirit to be able to understand that we was already pre-selected, pre-warned thousands of years ago towards where we're going to be at today. Unless you have the faith in believing in God and believing in the Lord Jesus Christ, odds are you're going to bat at something like this and you're going to miss it by about 3 foot, just like Donald Trump has done. He's still, as far as I know, being a climate denier. We need to pray for people like Donald Trump. We need to pray for people all over the planet. We need to pray for the people over in Cuba. We need to pray for the people over in Haiti. We need to pray for the people down in Mexico and South America. We need to pray for the people over in Africa and Russia and China and Japan and Canada and Australia and Greenland and Ireland and all these other different places all over the world, all these different islands. We need to pray for each other in these events that's now opening up, that we can see the irreversible damages happening to not only the planet but happening to humanity. We need to pray for one another and to pray to God that God will try to be lenient upon to society, because we have made great errors and great mistakes pertaining to global environmental changes. Thank you for listening. Good luck to all of us. We do wish everybody the best in going through what we're going through. Times has been hard, and I'm just afraid to be the bad news bearer, but it looks like things is even going to continue to stay bad, and possibly even get worse depending upon where you're at and what climate that you're having to deal with right now, regardless whether it be a dry climate or a wet climate. In ending of what I'm wanting to say right here, the people over in Germany and Wales and places like that have recently went through a terrible, terrible cycle of rain like they have never ever seen before in their entire lives. And as far as I know, there's give or take about 1,300 people that's missing or considered dead. It has been one of the worst devastating perils that they have had to gone through in the past, I guess, 500 years or so. So let's remember people on the other side of the world that are if they're not dealing with extreme environments pertaining to heat, they're having to deal with extreme environments pertaining to rain. Places that needs rain just don't get a shower any longer, they get a flood. Places that it needs to dry up doesn't just dry up a little bit, but it turns into scarring cimbers that if the least little bit of fire or a lightning strike goes off, it just turns it into hell. Basically what you're looking at right now, whenever you see the flames that has created its own environment. Let's go back to that real quick. Right here. Watch these flames. It looks like a tornado in the center. So look at that. It looks like a raging tornado. It's created its own atmosphere, is what it's done. And a lot of these intensified environmental hazards does just exactly that. It creates its own atmosphere. I would hate to know that I was caught up in something like that, because at that point in time, you're doomed. Unless you know truly how to save your life, which is trying to have a shovel or something towards burying yourself under the ground to a certain degree, and even at that, you probably still need to have some sort of like a heat blanket or something that will reflect the heat from you as the boiling blazes is cycling around you and over you. If you don't know how to save your life in areas like this, odds are it's probably going to wind up taking your life. It's that extreme. If you cannot get away from it, run from it quick enough, either by foot or on an automobile, it's going to be bad news, Charlie. like I said, these environmental changes are happening more and more frequently every year. They're intensifying, not just here on this side of the equator, but on the other side of the equator too as well. Once more, we want to thank you for being a part of this program. We want to thank you for having the decency of understanding and caring about society. We want to thank you for you having the insight towards understanding some of the things that we have already done been enlightened in. Good luck to all of us as we end the program, and shalom.